Hey guys, this is Billy from AdultCello.com. I've been getting this question a lot lately and I thought I would just answer it in a video. So this is for all of you who are thinking about starting the cello but are worried about making too much noise. Maybe you live in an apartment with thin walls, or you have sensitive housemates, or just the thought of other people hearing you as a total beginner makes you feel a little self-conscious. Here's my advice in two parts. First off, the question arises, do I buy a regular acoustic cello or should I go with the silent cello? By silent cello, I mean an electric cello that you plug headphones into. So I've actually played on electric cellos in the past for gigs, and they can be a lot of fun, but I highly recommend buying an acoustic cello to learn on for a few reasons. First off, if the sound of an acoustic cello is what inspired you in the first place, I just don't think you'll find an electric cello that recreates the tone or timbre of a cello made out of wood. Sound is everything, so you want to be able to make the sounds that drew you to the cello in the first place. Secondly, much of the intoxicating experience of playing an acoustic instrument might be lost if you go with an electric. When you play the cello, the entire instrument is vibrating sympathetically. It feels like you're bringing the wooden box to life. My wife, who's a professional violinist, is always sitting down and playing a few notes on my cello because she says that compared to violin, playing cello feels like she's hugging a bear and making it purr. Believe it or not, once you really start playing in tune, you can actually notice subtle differences in the way the wood vibrates and responds to the tones being released. Plus, for me, I just feel like playing on a wooden cello also connects me back to this beautiful centuries-old tradition of string instruments and the way they're made and the way we play them. Even today, a handmade cello is still crafted with many of the same methods and tools that Cremonese masters like Stradivarius and Guarnerius used and perfected hundreds of years ago. Another beautiful aspect of acoustic instruments is the phenomenon of overtones. On an acoustic cello, many of the notes, when played really in tune, will release audible overtones, which are essentially other higher frequencies that make up the sonic profile of that tone. Overtones are a major player in what we call the richness of an instrument's sound, and with electric instruments, a large amount of those overtones aren't really captured. Finally, I worry that learning to bow on an electric instrument might enable some bad habits that won't translate well if you eventually move over to an acoustic instrument. Because the strings on an electric instrument are more sensitive, I personally found that I don't have to focus on drawing out sounds with the bow as much, and basically, even if my bow arm gets a little lazy or sloppy, I don't notice as big a difference as with an acoustic cello. So those are my reasons for going acoustic. I have nothing against electric cellos. I guess it just comes down to the sound and style of cello you want to pursue. Now, if you've come with me this far and you're worried about an acoustic cello being too loud, don't worry. Now we're going to explore a simple way to cut down on those decibels. It's time to enter the interesting and varied world of mutes. So on cellos, a mute is a device we use in primarily two ways. The first and most obvious way is to make the instrument less loud. The mute sits over the bridge and essentially absorbs some of the vibration, which mutes the volume to a degree. The secondary use of a mute is as a timbral color change. While all mutes will lower the cello's volume, some also provide a sort of beautiful, distant, or dreamy tone that composers will sometimes use to create different moods in their music. So I'm going to introduce 4 mutes to you today and demonstrate their ability to cut down the volume as well as the tonal colors they offer. My advice would be to figure out how much sound your practice space will tolerate and then go for the minimum amount of muting possible. Again, we're in this for sound, so let's not squash it unnecessarily. First, the most common type of mute I use and see being used is the rubber mute. Here's how it fits. Simple. And you can leave it on the strings when you're not using it. And here is an interesting variation. This is a wooden mute. This is used often for the color it produces. Third, we have a mute made of leather. And finally, we have the Titanic of mutes, the practice mute. This is like the in case of quiet hotel rooms or extreme fussiness, break glass and use this. So instead of describing the mutes more with words, let's just hear how they sound. So there are some options for how to go about practicing comfortably in a small space or a shared space without having to go the silent cello route. I mean, even the name itself sort of bums me out a little bit. A silent cello. Also, there should probably be times when you can practice as loudly as you want, maybe in a different space altogether, not to mention if you plan on playing and performing with others in the future. And for all of those wonderful moments, it's worth just going acoustic and getting yourself the appropriate mute. I hope that helps, and if it did, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks and good luck.